Back here on CBS Sports HQ, our coverage continues the game for the NBA Finals. And look, the Celtics couldn't buy a bucket. They were 36% from the floor. They were not the team that we saw in the first 3 games. Dallas finally closing out on threes, playing interior defense. They were outscored 60-26 in the paint, the C's were. And they dropped game 4. They'll head home to try to close it out on their home floor at TD Garden on Monday. 122-84 is the final score. It was a 38-point win, the 3rd largest win in finals history. I mean, this is an absolute beatdown. And Dallas was in desperation mode. They had to win a game or their season was over. They lived to see another day. That day takes us to Monday. All right, back here in studio, John Gonzalez, Chris Walker, Joe Musso, Hakeem Dermashire, and Bill Ryder alongside as well. Chris, look, the adjustments. What does Joe Mazzulla say? He said, all right, we're flushing this? Forget about it. We're going to fly back. What are the adjustments here?
A couple things I think they can do. One of them that you made, a comment that you made, I think is interesting. And Bill and John may disagree, is that the referees, they let them play very physical and handsy with Boston, right? And again, that blue wall was created, so no fouls were called. And you got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown trying to get to the rim. I mean, they weren't calling anything. I love the Dallas Mavericks, but not that good of a defensive team, even though they've been great the second half of the NBA season. But they were 0 fouls called on a lot of those plays going to the rim, which those guys are normally getting those calls. And the other thing is, I think Boston's got to play a little bit faster. I know it's hard to say that, but when they set that defense up and you have that shot blocker with Lively and Gafford, it's kind of hard to score against that defense. But for me, I think the change of refs, I know it sounds crazy for me to say that, and change of venue, obviously, but the changing of the refs and making the game a little bit looser, right, and less physical, I hate to say that, will help Boston.
You agree with that?
I'm just saying.
You can't expect Boston to shoot like this again, right? I mean, they've got 7 guys.
No, you can't expect them to shoot.
Yeah,
like
they've got 7 guys who can make shots. 8 when you've got Kristaps Porzingis out there. We were talking about this earlier, like what would need to happen for the Mavericks to win a game. A lot of things, including you'd need everybody on the Boston Celtics to go cold, and that's what happened tonight. None of them could make a shot. I'd be shocked, even if you had half of those guys playing well, that's a boon for Boston, and all of a sudden they're back and they're cooking again. So I mean, the adjustment is make some shots, just get a couple of guys going, and you're probably going to be fine.
But why can't Dallas duplicate this? Why are we sitting here thinking like, hey, this is over in 5? Like, I don't want to sit here and just be like, okay, hand them the championship. They won it. I don't want to be doing that. Because why can't Dallas go into Boston and do, I'm not saying they're going to do what they did tonight, because tonight was historic.
Correct. Yeah,
but the chances of this happening, again, the 3rd largest win in finals history, this is a historic win. But why can't they go into Boston and figure a way to win there?
Because Boston's good. That's why. The bottom line is they hadn't lost. They're a very good team.
What was the line? The Celtics are the better team.
You wore a green suit tonight.
I know.
It was a reverse jinx.
But they're the best team in the NBA. And to your point, you could say make more shots. But even if you don't make more shots, I think if they can get to the foul line, like when the game is called like that, and the Celtics, I think they weren't crying. Jaylen Brown has never played like this. Look at the way Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum played, and compare that. I always say you could talk about the stay ready guys and the others. It comes down to the big 2. Look what the big 2 did from the Celtics and the big 2 did from the Mavericks, and then talk about the game after that.
I'm glad you said that, because the big 2 for Dallas, they were fantastic in this game, but there was an aspect of the game where they did fall short. Luka and Kyrie, 1 of 14 collectively from 3-point range. Rest of the team was 13 of 19. Bill, if you look at the winning formula on the road, obviously there has to be some depth aspect to that for Dallas. How do they negate the top 2 and say, he's going to score 25, he's going to score 25, we'll match it, and we'll let our bench do what they did tonight? Most bench points since 1983, 54 points. Obviously, that's weighted towards those minutes later in this game. But how big of a plus can that be for Dallas, the bench sort of game that they can play in coming up here in Boston?
Joe, I'm going to play peacemaker here. I'm going to bring it all together. Look, I think everybody's right on this panel. I think Chris is right that the officiating played a really huge role. Now, I would argue that my friends in the league office, I promise I will hear from them if I say this, but let's say the obvious. The officiating tends to be like that for a particular team when you're avoiding a sweep, because every game matters for ratings. It does. Like that's a real thing. And John is right. I mean, when the Celtics go, I don't know what it was, 2 for 139 or whatever they were on this evening, it's hard to beat them. Look, yes, like it was nice to see Lively get some easier buckets. And I did think that Luka Doncic, on top of not complaining a lot to the officiating, got his other guys in the flow of the offense, created some easy buckets for some of those guys. His usage rate wasn't quite as obsessive and as sort of singularly focused as it had been. I'm not sure it does translate. I think Akeem's right. I think Dallas can win this game. But the recipe that they're going to have to use will not be the recipe we just saw in Dallas. Boston's not going to be brutal from the field, almost certainly. You're not going to have your leading scorer score 15 points. You're going to see a lot more effort from Boston, and you're not going to have a really loose Dallas team where you're sort of playing for nothing but pride. Again, and we talked about this a little bit ago. The Warriors went through this in 2017. Lots of teams got in these gentlemen's sweeps. So for Dallas to win this game, they're going to have Kyrie. It's the exact conversations we had in Boston. Kyrie's got to play great in Boston. That hasn't happened in a really long time. Luka Doncic, because it's going to be more difficult. And to Chris's point, he's not going to get the same level of officiating, is going to have to keep his cool when Boston is allowed to be more physical. And they will be allowed to be more physical because it is not a sweep that is pressing down, because the game will be in the Boston Garden. There's a lot to unpack here. I don't think much of what we saw in this game transfers to Boston, other than maybe the confidence for the Mavericks that say, look, we finally played a game at a high level. Who we were the first 3 games of the series is not who we've been that got us here. Maybe there's a little bit of a psychological switch where those role players start hitting shots, where Kyrie is aggressive and effective early on and throughout the entirety of the game in Boston. Maybe Luka can be better. John's right. The points in the paint is so big for Dallas. Easier to do when Porzingis isn't playing. We'll see whether Kristaps is there or not. So there's a world where Dallas wins Game 5. But a lot of things are going to be different, and they're going to have to be better in all those respects when that game is in Boston, and the Celtics are very motivated to close things out at home.
I want to be in that world. I want to be in that world where the Mavericks win Game 5. I want chaos, Bill. I want something I've never seen, because I have something here. Teams to lead a best-of-7 series 3-0 or 157-0 in NBA history. I want 157-1.
Wow.
Okay, I want that. I want absolute Joker crazy. Absolute nonsense.
It's not gonna happen.
I know you're going to say it's not going to happen, but I want to root for it. Okay?
I'm with you.
I'm going to root for it. That's what I'm rooting for. You know, also, it's easy to feel pretty good when you're up by 40-some points. Luka had no problems with the officiating. Nice. Said, hey, it's on me. It's on me. It's on me. He's at the podium here on HQ.
Luka, you told us yesterday that you were going to leave the refs alone and focus on having fun. Then you followed through on that, like OKC Game 5. What difference do you think that made for you tonight?
It just helps out my team. We were locked in. I think especially on the defensive end, we played with pace, and that helps them. I'm here to help them, in every way I can. So we just got to play like that.
Luka, Dave McMenamin, ESPN. How does that outlook change now in the series that you have a win under your belt and you have a few more days of life headed to Boston?
I mean, it doesn't change anything. Like I said at the beginning of the series, it's 1st to 4, and we're going to believe till the end. So we just got to keep going. I have big belief in this team that we can do it. So we just got to keep believing.
Tim Reynolds on the back.
Luka, Tim Reynolds with the AP. You've said all series about the belief that you have, that this team has. How much more satisfying is it, number one, that people saw why that belief is there, but also this wasn't just you. You had a big first half, but you had a lot of guys do a lot of big things tonight. How critical is that for this group?
Yeah, it's big. It's basketball. There's 5 people on the floor, so that's huge for us. Everybody play with a lot of energy, and that's how we got to do it. We got to think the same way in Game 5 in Boston.
Over here on the left, Sarah.
Hey, Luka. Over the last 4 games, what's the biggest thing you've learned about yourself and what it's going to take to continue to win on this stage?
I don't know what to learn from myself. Ask me next day. I'll come up with the answer. I don't know really right now. But it's going to take everything. It's going to take energy, and especially energy. Because it's late in the season. We played a lot of games. So it's going to take, we got to stay together and locked in.
Here in the middle.
Luka, Robert Poredoš, Slovenska tiskovna agencija. Danes ste imeli v živo tudi podporo predsednika slovenske vlade. A ste se videla, ste se slišala, vam je povedal kaj koristnega?
Ja, na hitro. Pred tekmo sem mu pozdravil, tako da smo se videli.
Tanya on the left.
Luka, Tanya Ganguly, New York Times. Jason came in here before the game and gave sort of an impassioned defense of you. He said a lot of the criticism you've been receiving has become personal and is a little unfair. And I'm wondering, did he say any of that to you? And whether he did or not, what does it mean to you that he had your back like that?
Oh, no, he didn't say anything to me especially. But that speaks a lot about him. He always has players back. He always supports us, so that's a big thing to have a coach like that.
First row here.
Daniel Schwartzman, Luka Televisa, habías dicho que la clave era divertirte. ¿Qué tanto te divertiste, lo disfrutaste y qué tan especial fue para ti esta noche?
Sí, muy especial. Creo que no solo yo me divertí mucho, sino todo el equipo. Todo el equipo estaba divirtiendo y eso es la clave para nuestros partidos adelante.
Right here on the left, fifth row.
Tu primer victoria en unas finales de la NBA, Luka, por acá. La afición sigue apoyando, sigue emocionada. ¿Cómo te sientes? Y también con visita especial Sergio Ramos en la casa esta noche. Gracias y buenas noches.
Sí, la gente estuvo estupendo hoy, en tercer partido también. Y significa mucho de que todavía creen en nosotros. Y la verdad que sí, ha sido un honor tener a Sergio aquí, una leyenda en madridismo, así que ha sido un honor muy grande.
On the right, Mike.
Luka, Mike Curtis, Dallas Morning News. Derek Lively had a very impactful game, a double-double. Just what did you see from him, just stepping up on this stage, and what did you think of that three-pointer he hit in the corner?
Big time, man. I think people forget he's a rookie. He's a rookie doing this stuff. He's been amazing the whole season. Just watching him grow was unbelievable. And it's fun having him out there with me and calling my teammate. It's unbelievable, and it's a pleasure to have him. And he's 50% of the season, so he might as well keep shooting.
Last row.
He's 1 for 2, right?
Okay, 33%.
He's 1 for 1. He's 100% in the playoffs.
Last row.
Mojca Breskva, Radio Slovenija. Luka, ste kot ekipa čutili kaj dodatnega pritiska, da morate zmagati to tekmo in kako zdaj to, kar ste pokazali, prenesti tudi v Boston?
Smo, mi seveda smo. Noben noče biti tako izločen iz finala. Moramo pogledati to tekmo, ko smo igrali, kakšna je bila naša energija in tako moramo tudi igrati peto tekmo.
Thanks, Luka.
Thank you.
All right, you heard a question from a reporter there saying, what have you learned about yourself in 4 games? And he struggled to come up with an answer there. Did this game change your opinion about Luka in this particular series? Because the narrative so far, up until this night, was complaining, blaming. Did you take anything away from this game? Did you change your narrative or your opinion about Luka?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when he was asked that question, and I was going to say, to look at yourself and say, I messed up in that last game. I didn't play defense. I was blaming the refs. Tonight, I thought his effort defensively was pretty good. He was moving his feet. He was trying, which he didn't do in Game 3, and he wasn't complaining. As you mentioned, Akeem, in the first half, he fouled, I think it was his second foul.
Yep.
Put his hand up and went, that was on me, didn't say anything, and kept going on about his business. And I think, for Luka, sometimes he can be a little bit, give me the superstar treatment. And tonight, he went out and just played like a superstar instead of saying, give it to me.
Chris, the comment that struck me there was early on. He was asked what this win means in the grand scheme of the series, and you said this. He also said it. I think you meant 2 different things, but he said it doesn't change anything.
Right.
Almost in denial of a notion of momentum. Is that the right approach for this team coming off this win, or you do try and use it going into Game 5?
You definitely got to use it going into Game 5, and they have what people would say is an insurmountable task going into Boston. When Boston be able to clinch the 18th championship, they can't play any worse than what they played, and chances are they're not going to play as bad. And this was Dallas. Think about Dallas couldn't play any better. So the chance of them duplicating this effort is slim to none, and the same thing happens on the other end. And now you got to go to, again, a team that was the best in the NBA, was the hottest team in the playoffs, and again, that Boston, Dallas, they fought to get themselves to the championship. They weren't going to get swept. You know, and again, a gentleman's sweep is still a sweep, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, the NBA is happy, and Hakeem, I don't know, he was on to something. Officiating crew will be different,
Well,
and
yeah,
I think the game will be different next. I just believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible. Like they played football tonight, and that was how Dallas was able to keep them contained, because Jaylen Brown doesn't play like this. Tatum, you know, he disappears at times. But Drew Holiday, my goodness, he was horrible tonight. So those plus minuses you even mentioned were historic levels. They were laughable.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, again, to me, I don't want to say much ado about nothing.
Sure.
It was still a game. They should be happy they did win, but they got to go in Boston. That's going to be a tough task.
Let me take it one step further. We've seen 157 teams try, 157 teams fail. Is this team currently constructed, the Dallas Mavericks, is this the team that could do that?
Chris is looking at me because I know what you're going to say. No,
don't even think about it.
I think
okay.
No, because I think if it was a different team that they were playing against, then maybe, right? But the Boston Celtics, they're not going to just completely implode 3 more times and have everybody just go cold, right? So many things had to happen for this result to occur tonight. If you get half of those guys to make some shots, then all of a sudden the margin's much smaller. You're going back to Boston. Their defense is really good. They might have Kristaps Porzingis back. I mean, so many things would have to happen 3 more times. It's just really difficult for me to believe that the Celtics are going to look like this 3 more. Chris is smiling because I got the answer right.
No.
I finally got the answer right.
You're laughing. We're laughing because we're talking about this.
Yeah.
This only happened, I mean, I was a LeBron fan when the Cavaliers, when Draymond had the situation and they beat the team with the best record ever. That was really the most historic comeback. What we're seeing now would be probably bigger if they came back to beat the team with the best record, best in the playoffs, up 3-0, and they come back and beat them. It would be the best comeback ever in the history of NBA.
They are 7-game swings, and you're always trying to talk yourself into the next one. Maybe this one doesn't change the narrative much. You go to Boston and you win one, or having different conversations. We'll see what this meant to Jason Kidd. He's at the podium now.